Over in the pages of DC Comics, it was absolutely thrilling to check out the publisher's debut over for the brand new Birds of Prey series. Really appreciated some of the writing over from author Kelly Thompson, as well as the beautiful line work from Leonardo Romero. And the storyline was also quite captivating as the character of Dinah Lance, also known as Black Canary, went ahead and recruited a really eclectic roster of Birds of Prey members with individuals like Big Barda and Zealot in order to save Dinah's adopted sister known as Sin. My name is Arico Braddock, and today let's go ahead and check in on the second issue of Birds of Prey to see how close our team members are able to advance to Sin's location over on the Amazon island of Themyscira. Before we get deeper into the video, I want to encourage you to consider supporting the channel by liking this video and hitting that subscribe button as well. Black Canary's all-new team on their first mission. Black Canary has built an all-new team with a specific and very dangerous first mission: extraction. Their target? Redacted. She's being held on Redacted and guarded by a battalion of, you guessed it, Redacted. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, then we're explaining it wrong. It's a terrible mission, and before it can even be launched, the birds have to gather a few mysterious supplies and see some old faces that they punch. Birds of Prey Issue 2 is written from Kelly Thompson, featuring artwork over from Leonardo Romero. We have colors from Jordie Bellaire, letters over from VC's Clayton Cowles, and we also have a cover for the issue coming in directly over from Leonardo Romero as well as Jordie Bellaire. Really love the negative space that is featured so prominently over on our cover, showing off this really eclectic cast over in the Birds of Prey series that we mentioned a little bit earlier here. I want to extend a fast thank you over to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting our preview of the series so quickly. Without further ado, let's go ahead and check in over on this inaugural scene in the series, fleshing out the relationship over between Dinah and Sin over on the comic book page. Really have to hand it to how Kelly Thompson wrote the dialogue between Sin and Dinah over in this sequence. The playful dialogue, the food choices that they make fun of, and the references to Pokemon were so endearing across this opening chapter. I also really love the way that Jordie Bellaire kind of muted the colors over in this sequence, allowing for a really stripped back use of Leonardo Romero's tool set as an artist over in the series. I thought all these black sequences in shades of green brought out a really interesting sense of emotion across this tale. There's an excellent scene transition and so many great pieces of dialogue between this series. I think across this issue in particular, Leonardo Romero does an excellent job over with faces that allows me to empathize with some of these characters on an even deeper level than I thought possible over in some of these sequences. Now, I want to be totally honest here because I actually didn't find that a lot of plot advances over in the second follow-up issue of Birds of Prey, but the fact that it's so tied into the premise and features so much fantastic character work as well as interesting artistic choices really redeems this series overall for me. I love all of the uses of negative space. I love the panel borders across this issue and some of the perspectives that Romero uses over in this title. This page that we have up on the screen is so amazing, featuring Romero framing the panel in front of a window, adding some extra texture and dimension in this series. Also, Bellaire's colors add a really special element of like fog and blue over to the sequence that shows you that you're not essentially looking at these characters directly. I also think there's a fantastic element of subtext that's carried on over between some of Bellaire's colors as well as Leonardo Romero's line that really helps flesh out some of the more minimalistic dialogue over in this particular Birds of Prey sequence. I think the way that Zealot was fleshed out over in this tale makes her a particularly interesting character. The way that she ends up running into Black Canary later on in the comic book series, and the way that her individual story ties into what Harley Quinn is doing over in the comic book is also really, really interesting here. There's a sequence over with Harley Quinn where some of the birds are planning on what to do next, where Harley is asking a ton of questions. And the way that all these panels are divided across the series really comes across over with this element that Harley is really annoying some of her team members, but is also moving in some really interesting and like off the beaten path ways over across this tale. And also just the way that Leonardo Romero frames all of these individual panels is so shockingly beautiful across this comic book. Another aspect of this title that I really want to mention is the fact that Meridian is a character who is really introducing some fascinating elements to the core Birds of Prey title. I love how Meridian has the opportunity to explain some of the full stakes of the issue, and I also thought it was pretty intriguing how the current status quo for the Wonder Woman series also affects Birds of Prey, which really does make sense because the Amazons are currently in control over of Sin on the island of Themyscira. Black Canary ends up meeting over with John Constantine late in the issue, and this sequence delivers so many interesting scenarios across Birds of Prey. Early on in the comic book series, readers can see the fact that these characters are supposed to meet up over in some docks in Gotham. Watching these characters disperse and wander into scenarios that end up linking up the entire Birds of Prey team was a really fantastic way to tell the narrative from Kelly Thompson. And I thought in the second issue, they did a fantastic job advancing the plot while focusing on some character-first scenarios. There were some great elements over with Cass Kane and Big Barda. I really hope that this relationship develops over as the series goes. It seems like it's been a really unnatural friendship over between these individuals here. I also loved how Romero was able to utilize so many aspects of the negative space across this sequence. Some of the hallways over in Gotham late at night are just so harrowing here, and I think the way that all these elements tie back into the story are absolutely fascinating. And the idea that the specter of what's going on with the Amazons is looming as a dark cloud over with some of these Birds of Prey characters, I think is also very, very intriguing. And I have to hand it over to writer Kelly Thompson. There's something about the way she's writing Harley Quinn as this sort of confident but not cocky character who is really trying to pull through over at the end. So at the end of the day here, I am incredibly happy over with this follow-up chapter of Birds of Prey. I think there's so much fantastic characterization for individuals like Big Barda. I thought some of the guest characters over in this series were also really enticing with some individuals like John Constantine. I also found that the subtext of this series, the use of negative space, the way that these panels are positioned with really fascinating perspectives shows that this series over at DC Comics has some of the best art across the entire publishing line. It is so easy for me to recommend Birds of Prey to anybody who's really interested in reading some of these characters over at DC Comics. There is so much material, dimension, and texture to this series. The fact that there's even some plot threads over with Gotham Academy with the character of Meridian, I think really just shows how rich this series is in general. I want to know from you, are you enjoying Leonardo Romero's line over in Birds of Prey 2 as much as I am? What were some of your thoughts with how writer Kelly Thompson was able to manage the wide-ranging and eclectic cast over in this Birds of Prey chapter? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for coming to check out our review of Birds of Prey 2, and we'll be back to see where this series is headed next. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.